Ever get that feeling like you're just tossing words around without a clue where they come from?
Yeah.
Well, get ready, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of hidden etymologies.
We're going to uncover those word origins that are hiding in plain sight. You know, the ones that make you go, wait, really?
It's amazing how much history and culture we're carrying around in our everyday speech, right?
Absolutely. Like little linguistic time capsules.
Okay, so let's kick things off with some etymologies that seem almost too obvious, almost like cheating.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Let's start with holiday.
Okay, holiday. Well, right off the bat, you can see it's holy and day put together. Super straightforward.
Right, they're in the word itself.
Exactly. And if you trace it back, it comes from Old English, haligbyg, and it meant a day specifically for religious observance. But as time went on, it broadened to include any day of celebration or just taking a break.
So even though we might not think about the religious aspect that much these days, that history is still baked right into the word.
It's always there, lurking beneath the surface.
Okay, here's another one. Breakfast.
Oh, this is a good one. You're literally breaking your fast from the night before.
Makes perfect sense, right?
The etymology backs it up too. Old English festen brie, literally fast breaking. It really underscores how important food and the ritual of breaking a fast have always been for us.
Okay, ready for another easy one? How about shepherds?
Well, they herd sheep. It's almost too easy.
It does seem that way.
But even these simple ones can be revealing. Like, shepherd goes all the way back to Proto-Germanic, where scoop was sheep and herdis meant herder. It speaks to the long history of humans and animals working together, especially in farming communities.
And that history is still with us in that one little word.
It is amazing.
Okay, how about alphabet?
Alphabet. This one's fun. It actually comes from the first two letters of the Greek alphabet, alpha and beta. It's a great example of how the Greek writing systems had a huge influence on languages all over the world.
It's kind of funny how they just named their alphabet after the first two letters. Simple, but effective.
Right. It's so simple.
All right, I got to throw in one that always makes me smile. Hedgehog.
Hedgehog. Yeah, it's a pretty literal one, just a hog that hangs out in hedges.
I love how straightforward some of these are. And a cupboard, well, that's just a board for cups.
That's it. Middle English cup and board.
It's so practical, right? It shows how language often comes from those everyday objects and what we do with them.
It's strange. I never really stopped to think about these super obvious connections before. Have you ever been surprised by a really simple etymology?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes the most obvious ones are the ones we just completely overlook until we take a minute to think about it. It's like seeing something ordinary in a whole new way.
Totally. It's those aha moments that make etymology so fun.
Okay.
But it gets even better. Let's talk about those words with the N at the beginning. Like none, never, neither, none, never, neither. Yeah, they all start with that N, which basically means not. So you get not one, not ever, and not either. That little prefix unlocks a whole set of meanings.
It's like a secret code. And speaking of codes, here's one that really blew me away. Disease? I had no idea.
It is pretty striking, isn't it? Disease literally means not at ease. It comes from Old French disease, which is de meaning without and aise meaning ease.
Wow. It makes you think about how people way back then looked at being sick. Like maybe they saw it as this imbalance, like your body was just out of whack.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. The etymology gives us this glimpse into how they understood health and well-being, and it highlights that connection between feeling good physically and overall health.
Okay, get ready for another one. This one blew my mind. Magic and machine are actually related.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised by that one. But when you look at where they both came from, it actually starts to make sense. Both words trace back to this Proto-Indo-European root, ma. And it basically means to be able or to have power.
So how did we go from power to magic with all its mystery and supernatural stuff?
Well, magic took this winding path through Greek and Latin, evolving from the Greek magic, meaning magical, and magos, which referred to like a learned priest or wise man. So even way back then, magic was about more than just tricks. It had this connection to knowledge and a deeper understanding of the world.
So it wasn't just about pulling rabbits out of hats.
Exactly. It was connected to something bigger.
Okay, so how did we get from there to machine?
Well, machine developed from the Greek word mekhane, which meant device or means. It went through Latin too, and eventually we got machine as we know it today. The connection to power is still there, though, because machines harness energy and force to get things done.
So both magic and machine are about using power to achieve something. It's just that they go about it in different ways.
Right. Different approaches, but a shared root. And isn't it fascinating how machines, which we usually think of as super logical and practical, share an ancestor with magic? Something we associate with the supernatural and the unexplained.
It really makes you think about how our ancestors saw the world and the connection between the natural and the supernatural. I bet there are tons of other word connections out there just waiting to be discovered.
Oh, absolutely. We're just getting started. There are so many words with surprising origins, and each one gives us a little peek into the history of language and how humans have thought about the world over time. Okay, ready for another one that might throw you for a loop? How about ostrich?
Ostrich. Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right, so ostrich is a combo of the Latin word for bird, which is avis, and the Greek word for sparrow, strythos.
Wait, sparrow. But ostriches are huge. Sparrows are tiny. How'd they get mashed up together?
It is a weird pairing, right? Some people think the sparrow part might be because of the ostrich's legs, long and thin, kind of like a sparrow's. Or maybe it was just a mistake that, somehow stuck. We might never know for sure.
Well, that just makes it even more interesting, like a linguistic puzzle. Okay, how about villain? Now that one sounds a little sinister.
Villain. Yeah, it's got a history that reveals a lot about, social class. Originally, it just meant serf or peasant worker. It comes from late Latin villainus, and it referred to someone who lived in a village or worked on an estate.
So basically, the word got its bad reputation from, classism. The upper classes looking down on the working class and calling them villains.
You got it. Over time, it went from just being about someone's social status to suggesting they were morally bad, wicked. It really shows how biases can get baked right into language.
It's a good reminder that words can carry a lot of baggage from the past. Okay, what about pandemonium? That one just sounds chaotic.
It is, and the origin story is pretty dramatic, too. Pandemonium literally means the place of all demons.
Whoa!
Yeah. The poet John Milton came up with it for his epic poem Paradise Lost back in 1667. He used it to describe the capital of hell, a place of total chaos and turmoil.
So pandemonium comes from literature. That's so cool. It's amazing how creative writers can come up with words that end up in our everyday vocabulary.
Absolutely. Literature has had a huge impact on how we speak and express ourselves. Speaking of words with literary roots, have you ever thought about lord and lady? They sound so grand and noble.
I have. I always figured they came from some super fancy concept. What's the real story?
Get ready for this one. Both lord and lady actually have pretty humble beginnings that are all about food.
Food, right?
Yep. Lord comes from Old English lufford, which meant bread guardian, and lady comes from luftage, which meant bread kneader.
Bread guardian and bread kneader. That's not what I was picturing.
It just goes to show how important bread was back then, as a staple food. The lord was the one who made sure there was enough bread for everyone, and the lady was the one who made it.
It's amazing how even those super fancy titles can have such down-to-earth origins. It's a good reminder that food has always been at the heart of human life.
It has. Okay, ready for a pair of words that seem like total opposites? How about sad and satisfied?
Sad and satisfied. But those are completely different emotions. How could they possibly be related?
It's a great example of how the meaning of words can change a lot over time. Sad actually used to mean satisfied or full. It comes from the Old English sed. But over the centuries, the meaning shifted. It went from full to firmly established, then to heavy or serious, and finally to the feeling of sorrow that we know today.
Wow, that's quite a journey for a word. From contentment to sorrow. It really shows how dynamic language can be.
It really does. Words aren't fixed. They change as cultures and societies change. Okay, here's one that I think you'll like. It's about deliberately ignoring something. Turn a blind eye.
Oh, I've always loved that phrase. It's so visual. Is there an actual story behind it?
There is. It comes from this British admiral during the Battle of Copenhagen in 1801. This guy was known for having a blind eye, and during the battle, his superior officer ordered him to stand down.
Oh, no.
But the admiral thought they were close to winning, so he literally raised his telescope to his blind eye, pretending he didn't see the order.
He turned a blind eye. For real. That's amazing.
It is, and that act of defiance is how we got the phrase we use today, which means to intentionally ignore something, especially if it's something wrong.
It's incredible how a single event can shape language like that.
Okay,
Let's talk about a word that's become super relevant these days, especially online. Gaslighting.
Gaslighting. Yeah, it's a word with a very specific origin story that comes from a 1944 film called, well, Gaslight.
Oh, right. The one where the husband messes with the gas lights to make his wife think she's going crazy.
That's the one. And that kind of psychological manipulation where someone denies or twists reality to make someone else doubt their own sanity became known as gaslighting. But what's really interesting is that the word light itself has a long and fascinating history.
Okay, so let's shed some light on light, pun intended. What's the story there?
Well, light goes all the way back to Old English liot, which ultimately comes from the Proto-Indo-European root luk. And that same root gives us words like illuminated, elucidated, and illustrated. It's all about the idea of brightness, and dispelling darkness.
Wow, I never realized light had such deep meaning. It's about knowledge, understanding, clarity. But how does that connect back to gaslighting?
Think about it this way. When someone's gaslighting another person, they're manipulating information and twisting reality. They're trying to control how the other person sees the light.
Oh, I see what you mean. They're trying to dim the other person's light, their understanding of what's real.
Exactly. And understanding the etymology of light helps us grasp the psychology behind gaslighting. It's about controlling information, distorting perception, and ultimately making the other person doubt themselves and their own reality.
That's so insightful. I'm starting to realize that etymology isn't just about knowing where words come from. It's about understanding the deeper layers of meaning and how history has shaped the way we speak.
You got it. Etymology gives us this window into history, culture, and how humans have made sense of the world. And as we keep exploring, we'll uncover even more of these amazing linguistic tales. It's amazing how much one little word can tell us about what it means to be human.
Right. It's like each word is a thread that's woven into this giant tapestry of history and culture and how we see the world.
That's a great way to put it. Speaking of threads, did you know clue actually comes from a story in Greek mythology?
No way. Clue. I always thought that was a pretty basic word. What's the mythology connection?
Well, clue comes from clue, which used to mean a ball of thread. And in the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, Ariadne gives Theseus a clue of thread to help him find his way out of the labyrinth after he kills the Minotaur.
Oh, yeah. I remember that story. So the thread that helped Theseus escape became the word for any piece of information that helps solve a mystery. That's wild.
It is, right. It shows how these ancient stories can leave a mark on our language. Speaking of marks, how about gauche?
Gauche. I always think of that word as meaning awkward or like not very socially smooth. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, gauche comes from the French word for left. And for a long time, being left-handed was seen as suspicious or even bad in a lot of cultures.
Seriously, why would being left-handed be such a big deal?
There were all sorts of reasons. Some people thought the left side was associated with evil. Others just thought it was weird or clumsy.
So gauche reflects this time when being left-handed was considered like out of the ordinary and therefore kind of awkward. It's crazy how a word can carry all that baggage from the past.
It is. It shows how even simple words can be loaded with cultural biases and prejudices. Okay, how about a word that combines alchemy and being really good at something? Adept.
Adept. Yeah, that one definitely makes me think of someone who's a master and expert. What's the alchemy connection?
So in alchemy, an adept was someone who had reached a really high level of knowledge and skill. They were trying to do things like turn regular metals into gold, and some of them were also searching for spiritual enlightenment.
So adept originally meant someone who was super skilled in alchemy, but now it applies to experts in any field, right? It's like that concept of mastery has gone beyond alchemy.
Exactly. It recognizes that being really good at something is valuable no matter what it is you're good at.
Okay, ready for a word that's all about excitement? Let's talk about thrill.
Thrill. Now that's a word that gets my heart racing. I love that feeling of excitement and anticipation. What's the story behind it?
Well, thrill comes from Old English thurlian, which meant to pierce or to drill.
To pierce. That doesn't sound very exciting.
I know, right? But if you think about the physical sensation of a thrill, it's often described as a tingling or piercing feeling, like something's running through your body.
That's true. It's like this burst of energy that pierces through and wakes up all your senses.
Exactly. So thrill evolved from that physical meaning of piercing to encompass this whole range of intense emotions.
It's amazing how words can go from concrete, physical things to these abstract feelings.
Language is always changing and adapting to express the nuances of human experience. Speaking of nuances, let's move on to daredevil.
Daredevil. That one definitely evokes a sense of risk-taking and pushing the limits. Where does it come from? It's actually a compound word, like you might have guessed. It combines dare and devil.
So a daredevil is literally someone who dares the devil. Pretty intense.
It is. Dare implies a challenge, a provocation, and devil represents danger, evil. So a daredevil is someone who faces danger head-on, often without much concern for their own safety.
Like they're not afraid of anything. It's a good reminder that humans can be both super careful and super reckless.
Absolutely. And language gives us the words to describe that whole spectrum of behavior. All right, how about hoax?
Hoax. That one always makes me think of someone being tricked. What are its origins?
Believe it or not, hoax probably comes from the phrase hocus pocus, the one magicians use to create a sense of mystery and illusion.
Hoax comes from magic.
Yeah.
But it's all about deception and trickery.
I know, right? It's kind of ironic. Hocus pocus was meant to create wonder and entertainment, while a hoax is designed to mislead. But the connection shows how playful language can be and how words can change in unexpected ways.
It's like language itself is doing magic, transforming and playing tricks on us with the way words evolve.
I like that. Okay, how about a word that's all about beauty and allure? Let's talk about glamour.
Glamour. There's something so captivating about that word. What's its story?
Glamour has roots in magic, too. It comes from the Scottish word gramarye, which referred to magic charms, spells, and illusions.
So glamour used to be about casting spells and enchanting people. That's so cool.
It is. And even though we might not think of glamour in that way anymore, it still has that sense of enchantment and allure.
It's like a little reminder that there's still magic in the way we see beauty and charisma.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for one last word? Let's talk about gadget.
Gadget. I think of all the cool new tech inventions that make our lives easier and more fun. Where does that word come from?
This one might surprise you. Gadget actually comes from the world of ships and sailing. It probably popped up in the 19th century as a word for a small, useful tool or device on a ship.
Gadget was a seafaring term. That's so unexpected.
It was. The exact origin is a little fuzzy, but it probably meant anything from a special kind of knot to a small navigational tool. Over time, the meaning broadened to include any clever or innovative device, and eventually it became associated with technology and inventions.
It's like the word sailed from the ocean to the world of technology.
Exactly. And that ability to adapt is what makes language so amazing. It's constantly changing to reflect new ideas and experiences.
Well, this has been a blast.
I know. I've had so much fun diving into the hidden world of words with you. I've learned so much about how language changes and how it reflects all the richness of human history and culture.
It's been a pleasure exploring with you. Remember, every word has a story to tell. Keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep discovering the magic of language.
And thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into etymology.
Until next time, happy word exploring.